then let's go ahead and get started with today's EnRoute webinar. Today, Aaron will be talking about how to use new ordering tools in EnRoute. And as many of you know, Aaron is in charge of training here at SAI, and he knows EnRoute inside and out. He knows everything there is to know about it. So he will show you about the new ordering tools, and then we'll have a question and answer session. So if you have any questions about the tools or about EnRoute, you can type them in the chat window there, and Aaron will answer as many of those as we can. And I think that'll be everything for today. We will be recording today's webinar as usual, and we'll post it on to our YouTube channel, and we'll send you all a link as well. So if you ever want to go back and review the webinar, we'll have it posted. And with that, we'll turn it over to Aaron.
All right, sounds good. So today we're going to look at some of the new ordering tools in EnRoute. These are some great tools that we've come out with in 6.1. Some of you guys have probably seen some of this, and some of them are maybe not quite as familiar with it. But order by line and order by group, two new features in EnRoute, and we think it'll help you guys order some of your projects a little bit better and kind of get a little more control over your ordering process, just to make some of those little different circumstances just a little bit better. So the first thing we want to do is just quick talk about what versions you're going to find this in. So you would need to be on the latest version of EnRoute, EnRoute 6.1. That's going to be the one you want to be at. So you can go to your help menu and click about, and that's going to show you your file version right here. Whoops. 6.0.15, that's the one you guys should have. The way that you're going to find this out on your guys' end is if we go to your internet browser, we're going to go to www.saicloud.com. You're going to log in with your email address and password for your cloud account, and then you're going to find your ID number in here. And unfortunately for me, I have a bunch of test licenses, so it might be a little trickier to find this out. Oh, here it is, EnRoute 6. So I'm going to click on it. And then my active build number is just listed right here. So if I want to download this, I can hit download now, and it'll download my entire update, and then I can go ahead and install that. So if you guys are running like 6.0 or something like that, or an early version of 6.1, go ahead and check this out and see if you've got the latest version. If you are on the latest version, great. You're already set to go. Let's kind of talk about what these are going to be used for. So let's start with the order by line, and I'm going to switch files here. So the order by line tool allows me to draw in a more manual way what I want the toolpaths, or what order I want the toolpaths to go. This is definitely a form of manual toolpath ordering. So it uses that kind of the same general process that you would use if you were manually ordering your toolpaths, but it uses a drawing scheme. So here I've got a set of squares all set up here, and I want to keep the example simple for now, but if I want to order this in rows or any kind of special way, I can very easily draw what I want the order to be. So what I'm going to do is, you're looking up here in your output screen, you're looking at this order by line tool is right up in here. You can also get this, let's see here, by going to the machine menu and clicking on order by line. So if I click on order by line, I get a slightly different cursor. It gives me this little crosshair with the squiggly line on it. And now I can left click and draw kind of like a freehand. And I can draw in what order I want this to go into. So I'm just going to do it like an up and down pattern here, like this. And I'm going to go in there. So now you're going to get a preview of what the EnRoute software has determined should be the order based on the line that you've drawn. So you can see here the pink line is going through there. Super important step. If this looks correct, you need to hit enter. If it doesn't look correct, then you can just start redrawing and it will redraw what it thinks you're going to do. So if we do this, it'll refresh the drawing scheme. So important to know that if you click out of this tool like this, and then we go to try and order without hitting enter at all, and we hit play, it's not going to do what you wanted it to do. So it's really important that when you click on this drawing tool and we decide that this is what we want, when we get that pink preview line, we must hit our enter button on the keyboard to accept the changes. All right, so I hit enter and it all goes away. So now we've accepted it. At this point, we do want to move on to our next tool. So we want to simulate this. So I'm going to click on simulate. I'm going to bring this over here. I'm going to click on my order button. And the important thing here is going to be that we set the object order as number 1. So this can be a little bit tricky, but if you guys have never moved these things around, the trick here is that you want to click on this little box next to object so that the black arrow is pointing on it and that it's highlighted blue. Once it's in that little square, if you left click and hold, you're going to notice that a little white box appears under my white cursor. That means that it's locked onto it and then I've grabbed it and now I can drag it and I can see the little black bar indicating where it's going to go. So I'm just going to put it up here at the top and then I'm going to click update order. And I'm going to go ahead and hit this rewind button just to make sure that it does what I want it to do. I'm going to check on my object order and I'm going to hit play. Oh, that did not do it. I think what we need to do is make sure that the shortest is set. All right, I've done something wrong. So let's start over. Order by line, draw. We're going in an up and starting at the top, we're going to an up and down pattern. I'm gonna hit enter, go directly to my order by line tool, make sure object is at the top. There we go. So now it's doing my up and down pattern. I really didn't have to do a whole lot here. Something must have gotten messed up when I did my priority moving around, so that might have caused something to happen. But the idea is under object order, you don't want anything selected here. So if I were to accidentally click the shortest, that actually removes the order by line. What actually happens is if you have the object order clicked and there's no check boxes in any of these, the software knows is says, okay, from now on, we're actually doing a manual toolpath. So if you guys were doing a manual toolpath with the set toolpath order, you'd actually have the same thing happen. You'd want to make sure that the object is at the top and that none of the boxes are checked because now it knows that it has to use the manual ordering or the order by line. So really simple. We can do this and we can do all kinds of stuff with this. So I can have it go something like this. I can see my preview here. It shows me what it's going to do. I like that. Hit enter. I'm going to go to my simulate 2D. Click on order. Make sure object's at the top. Click on object. None of the objects are checked. And then they're just going to go ahead and click on this. And now this gives me super control over the objects that I want to cut. So we think that this is going to be a really powerful tool for you guys in terms of ordering. Now, one thing to remember is that when you do preview something, um, you want to make sure if you ever guys use the Simulate 2D or the Simulate Ortho, unfortunately at the moment they're not really connected to the output screen. So you want to make sure and save this to a preference. So if you make any changes in the Simulate 2D, what my default thing to do is I just hit this little P with the arrow pointed to it, and that'll save it as a preference so that when I hit close and done, and I actually go to my output screen, objects is still at the top, it's still unchecked, and all I have to do is hit to file. So make sure that you guys are aware of that. If you have problems with getting it correct in your simulate options, but then you go to output, it does something slightly different. Make sure that when you do your simulate 2D, just hit that P with the arrow pointing to it. It'll save it as a preference so that when you go back to the output screen, it's all ready and set for you. And you can draw this in kind of any order you want it to be. You should be able to draw some crazy stuff. It will do some stuff based on what it generates and things like that. So depending on where your line goes and things like that, it'll try and do its best. So I mean, your file may not look as simple as this. This is a really, really basic example, but the idea is still kind of there. But the idea is if you want it to do, this is a much easier way to organize your cuts top down or up down or left right. One of the things that you might have struggled with in the past is if you had something like, let's say you had these squares offset like this, and you go into the Simulate 2D and you go to Object, if you use the columns option and you decide to do the top to bottom or bottom to top, what can happen is it looks at the objects based on their orientation, and it will do this one. It'll probably do this one first and then come down and maybe do this one and then do this one and then this one and then do this one, this one, this one, this one. So if your objects, and in this case they're square, so they're easy to line up in a row or a column, but if they're oddly shaped parts and they're not as easy to line up perfectly, sometimes you can get that weird effect where it's not wanting to do it correctly. This order by line will really help something like that, because now that even if they're crooked in any kind of way, I can still use that order by line to make sure that it does what I want it to in terms of my ordering. So I can see even though these are out of order or they're slightly misaligned, this will kind of take care of that object. So it's just a real quick way of ordering your stuff. So this is the order by line. So the next tool that we want to kind of go over is order by group. Now this one is going to be one that there's no check boxes, there's no real tool to click on. It's just a feature that's been added to the background of EnRoute, and it automatically does it based on the actions that you take in the software. So let's go ahead and jump over to a different file. I have this file set up here. It's basically a strange part where we have a bunch of holes in the middle, and then we have an external cut. Now this is grouped already. I'm going to ungroup it so we can see that I can select each one of these parts individually, and then the outside I can select individually as well. So what the order by group does is it orders the objects in the order that you added them to the group. So the way that I'm going to do this is, my theory here is I want to cut all of these across the top kind of in a back and forth motion like this, and then I want it to do the outside last. and I want it to do this entire part before it moves on. Hence the reason why we would group. So in past versions of EnRoute, once you grouped an object like this, it didn't matter what you did, it kind of threw away a lot of the grouping and the toolpathing positions that you'd put in. So it made it very, very difficult for you to set up a part like this and then have it do certain things in order and finish up this part in a specific order and then move on to the next thing. So in this case, I'm going to hold down my shift key and I'm just going to click on each one of these, and this is the order I want it to go in. I want it to go back and forth. It's like this. And then I'm going to select my outside piece. Once I've done that, I'm going to go to Transform and click on Group. And when I go to my Simulate 2D, I'm going to click on Order. I'm going to put Object at the top again, except for this time, I'm going to click on Rows, but I'm not going to click on any of the options down below. Just click on Rows and leave it that way. Update the order, hit back. And now as I can preview here, it's going to go in the exact order that I told it to, even though they're grouped together. So this is something that was always kind of an issue in EnRoute in the past, but this order by group is going to help fix kind of some of those issues. Also, just to be aware, this box here does need to be checked. If you uncheck this box, it does eliminate that. In the past, EnRoute did do a maintain grouping, but you were never able to organize the pieces inside the group. So this is nice. We can take this to a slightly different level. So let's just ungroup this and try something else. So ungroup. Let's say that I want to do this one, then this one, corner, corner, top, top, and then do the ones in the middle. Seems like a strange order. Click on the outside. I can either hit group here or I can hit Control G. I'm going to go to my Simulate 2D, bring that back over here, make sure the object's at the top, make sure that I clicked rows. There's nothing checked in here. Update order. I'm going to click back, and I'm going to go to next tool lift, and it does exactly the order that I told it to do it in. So this is going to make ordering way, way nicer. You guys that use groups and that want parts to be cut in their entirety and as a whole before it moves on to another part, this is going to be really good for you guys. We run into a lot of customers that have always had issues with this in the past. This is really going to help you guys out. So let's step it up a notch. Well, how can we get a little bit better? All right, well, if I'm cutting this part multiple times, let's just do 4 copies. That should be good enough for our example here at this point without dragging it along too far. I'm going to make 4 copies. When I do this, by the way, and I go back into my simulate, at this point I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to re-click anything. That grouping has been copied and duplicated to each one of these parts. So it will know where to go on each one of these. So I'm going to hit order. The only thing that I need to do here is click on object order, click on rows, and I do need to make sure and hit update order. Even though that option was already checked, what happens is when you introduce new copies, sometimes the Simulate 2D could give you a message saying that it only will process one of them. So just make sure and hit update order so that the Simulate 2D recognizes that there's extra parts there. Hit back. And let's just go through here again. So we've got that same order before. And now it's going to do that for each and every part. It's going to do the same order every single time. So this is going to make something like this a lot easier than before. So we think you guys are going to enjoy these tools. Again, let me reiterate here, just like we mentioned before, if I want to keep this and make sure that it goes to the output screen, I'm going to hit my save preferences so that when I click close and go to my output screen, the same order and object is selected there like it was before. So that's order by line and order by group. You can create groups inside of groups if you want to. So I could do another group, and that would take care of that as well. For now, I could just leave this here, and that will it kind of does what I want it to do. I want to do the bottom ones and then the next row first, and so on. So know that that's available to you guys. This is a really powerful tool. Do you guys have any questions on these two tools and how to use them?
Let's see here. We had a couple that came up during the presentation. William said, what if you wanted to do the four corners first and couldn't draw a continuous line in that order?
Yeah, so that was on that first file here. Let's go back here. Move these back into position. Let's just try something like that to make it my drawing a little easier. Let's try it here. I believe it should be able to do that. So we tried to do that. Um, that looks like it's a little crazy for it because we don't have the continuous line is wanting to kind of mess that up. Let's see here. Obviously, that would be a little bit of a tricky. In that case, it doesn't look like it's going to be able to do that specifically. Because the continuous line, it's looking for objects that are inside of that line. Let's see if it'll let me. Now let's try this. Hold on, let me try this again. Let's do this, and then we'll end with that one maybe. See if. No, it doesn't look like it. So that's kind of a radical style one there. So it won't let you do that, mainly because if we were wanting to do that, I would probably in that case use the manual ordering. So I could use the set toolpath order in that case. And what I would do is I would set this one to number 1, and then set. Oops, I guess I gotta hit enter there. You know what? It would be easier if I just went manual. 1, 4, 2, 3, 4, and then I did this. That would probably be a better way to do that specific one. The order by line is kind of it's an easier method to get the software to do rows and columns a little bit better, where rows and columns were kind of a big issue in the past where it wouldn't do that. Another example would be if you had cabinet parts and you wanted it to do bigger cabinet parts first, and then, so for example, let's say you wanted to start in the middle and work your way out. That would be a good example of how you might want to do that. Or perhaps maybe you would rather it start on the edges like this and then kind of work your way in, something like that. That would be a good way to do that. A good way to use it. Uh, or for example, if you would prefer it to cut some small pieces first, and if you had those small pieces ordered over here on this end of the plate, you'd kind of draw a line here and then have it draw out to the rest of the plate. So there's several different ways it can be used. In that specific scenario, I think I would just go ahead and just use the manual order toolpath versus the order by line. Let's see.
Let's see. My Simul 2D never usually shows me enough details. I use Sim Ortho. Do I have to use 2D for this?
No, you can actually use the uh, simulate ortho as well. So if we let's do our order by line. I'm enter and let's do simulate ortho. Order object at the top. Okay. Yes, it will work. Oh, I think my ortho froze for some reason. Oh, I just told it. Oh, here, just hit play. That's why. Okay. I just told it to go only to the next tool lift. Um, there we go. So yeah, it'll work with any of the ortho or simulate 2D options, whichever one. Yep. I just prefer the uh, the 2D, but some people prefer the ortho. So either one will work. So you have a question. You have 6.1.015 and do not see this tool. If you are, I believe the order by line tool is a subscription only option. So if you're using a permanent license, that might be the issue there. Um, Another thing you could do, if you do have the subscription and it's still not showing up, try right-clicking on the EnRoute 6 icon and hitting Run as Administrator. Sometimes that causes some issues. Not usually, we haven't had any, but sometimes it's worth a try. But you do need to be on the subscription for the Order by Line tool to be there. This is a sub-only feature.
Okay. And I had a question from Austin. It said, will the order by group work if I want to do a hatch fill first before cutting the outside edge?
Yes, that should work. So let's go back to our other file here. Let's just play around with it a little bit. This is an internal and an external cut where I separated them. So I actually applied these separately just so that I could control the two. One thing to note is that if I were to toolpath this all at the same time so that the internal and the external parts or toolpaths get applied at the same time, technically it's considered one toolpath. So in this case, I had to actually apply these separately. So I had to select the inside holes, apply a routing offset set to the internal, and then do an external mail on this one. If I were to select the entire piece and just hit external routing mail, where it automatically identifies these as middle pieces, in those cases, the order by line or the order by group probably wouldn't work because it's considering those objects one big toolpath, not separate entities. So that would be one of the caveats here. But let's just grab one of these real quick, delete the toolpath, and put in an island fill. And let's just do this. So say I want to do these. My island fill, and then my routing offset group. Let's go to simulate 2D, order, object order. Let's just do, we do columns. We won't select anything. Back. There you go. So yes, I could have answered your question quicker, but yes, it can, and that would be you just treat them in the same way. So it doesn't matter if you're using a drill point, an island fill, a hatch fill, an engraved toolpath. When it does the order by line or order by group, it is specifically measuring which things you selected first and in what order they are, so that when you group them together, it remembers that, and then it transfers over to the simulate options. So yeah, good question though. Yeah, good question.
All right. So it looks like we have two more questions here. David said he wanted to know, so that this is not available for traditional licenses. Is that
Correct.
am I
There's a
correct?
couple tools that are not available to the standard licenses. The order by line and the new drag knife cut toolpath. Those are subscription only options. They will eventually be added to the next permanent version of EnRoute eventually, but it's like with our current version is any new features that get introduced, they get introduced to subscription customers first, and then eventually get added to the permanent version of the software down the line.
Okay. Okay. And if you had an EnRoute design subscription, for example, to use with your traditional ones, you could use these tools, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Perfect. And then let's see here. Let me just scroll up a little bit. Well, Omar said, what if I want to use cuts for inside and then do all the perimeter after the inner cuts are done? For example, groups of 6.
Let's see. You could do that. So this would work with multiple groups. If I were to split this into, let's say, different groups here, and let's ungroup this. So if I had, let's make this example just a little bit smaller here for us, make this a little quicker. But let's say we had groups of 4 like this. What I could do is I could go ahead and make the copies ahead of time like this. And then I could say, I want to do this like this in these groups of 4 or 6, however you want them to do it. And you could select these. Principle applies, still the same. Whoops. Moved it there. Again, it's recording what you're clicking next. So even if I do it this way, we should still get the same result. So group them together, simulate 2D, order, object at the top. We'll do rows, that's fine. And hit back. And so now it'll do all the centers first, and then it'll do the outsides in the order that I told them to do. So yeah, this can be to any scale. That's the good thing, is that this particular order by group or order by line tools can be scaled up into any kind of way that you want them to. So if you wanted to do them in groups of 4 or 6, or if you wanted to do things like that, this kind of gives you the ability and the power to do that. The ordering by group is a really powerful one, we think. So is the order by line, but they're both, we think, are kind of really good advancements for the ordering. Makes ordering just a little bit simpler than it used to be. Just to make sure that you guys can get the perfect order for every single scenario that are out there. So we think this will kind of take care of scenarios that we weren't able to reach in the past, or were difficult to reach in the past.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Aaron.
Um,
Um,
doesn't look like there's any other questions unless you saw some that I missed.
yeah, let's see here. Thought we had two more. Oh, awesome. I was just clarifying what happens if I group the hatch fill first by itself and then group it to an outside cut. Will it work the same?
Yes, it will work the same. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the reason why it was, because again, it's recording every selection. So even if you told the island fill to go first or whatever, it remembers that selection. The important thing is that when you go to output, you do have to have the order or the object at the top. So that puts the primary focus on the order that you created when you selected them. If object is number 2 or number 3 in your list, EnRoute doesn't put near as much focus or priority to it, or it puts less of a priority on it, and so you might get some things not happen quite right. So that's why it's important to have object here at the top.
Okay. And then I think the last one, Charlie said, to confirm what you said, if I design in EnRoute design cloud or subscription and then send to EnRoute 6 purchased, it would know how to order.
I have not tested that very specific scenario, but I do believe that it should hold if you save the file. I do believe that it should hold because when you save an EnRoute file, it saves a lot of the stuff inside of it. For example, like all your tools and all the things that you use. It also saves the order. Different things like, for example, if on one copy of EnRoute you had the grid, you save it, but on the other copy you don't have the grid turned on. When you open up that file, it turns the grid on. So there's a lot of different stuff that gets saved into the ROU file. I would have to test that one specifically to let you know, but I believe that that should work because it transfers the order into the ROU file when it moves over. So I believe it should. Now my only problem with that it might be is actually, now that I'm thinking about it, is that, well, you know what? Actually, now that I think about it, that information probably, it will get transferred over, but now that I think about it, I don't think if you have a permanent version, it would work, because if the permanent version doesn't have access to those two tools, it's probably not going to know what to do with it, and it'll just probably use a default order. So that actually may not work.
Okay, so Charlie, Dan,
Now
we
that I think
can
about it,
we can research into this and follow up to let you know for a definitive answer.
yeah, for sure.
So we've got your emails will be in the sign up list, so we'll follow up and let you know. Looks like we just had one more request from Omar. He asked if we could please review ordering by layers versus passes.
Yeah. So okay, that's a good question. So order by passes is if I have multiple passes on a sheet, what it does. In fact, let's modify our file just a little bit. Let's remove the toolpath and let's get rid of. Let's just make this really simple and easy for us to do a little demo on this real quick. Oh, these are grouped. Need to ungroup those first. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to delete these guys as well. I'm going to apply a routing offset on this. It's going to be 0.75 inches deep. I'm going to make sure that I have multiple passes. I do. Okay, and I'm going to make 2 copies. All right, so if I go to order and I click on by pass and then move that towards the top, update, go back, I'm going to hit go to the next tool lift. It's going to cut the first one and then go to the second one and then come back and go back. So actually, let's do this by going to the simulate ortho. This is actually one of those times when the simulate ortho is a little bit nicer. So pass is at the top, hit play. Oops, I just hit only go to the next tool left. I'll have to play again. And then hit play again. There we go. So what it's going to do is it's going to do the first pass on both of these first, and then it's going to come back and do the second pass on both of them next. What this is useful for is if you're concerned with vacuum pressure on your machine and you have like a lot of small parts, you guys might be familiar with the idea of onion skinning or creating an onion skin. What this will do is this will allow you to create an onion skin if you wanted to, and then have it cut most of the way down on all of your parts, leaving just a tiny little onion skin, and then you could come back and then cut it all off at the same time. all just that little onion scan. Or if you prefer it to cut all the passes on a part first, and then do the second pass on all the parts second, and then the third pass on all the parts third, it would do that as well. Now the order by layer, this one's kind of a fun one. Let's see here. Let's go rewind, done. I'm going to actually import, I'm going to go to new file. I'm going to import a file quick for you. So it's kind of a short webinar, so I have kind of excited to be able to do some of these other ones here. So I'm going to grab this guy and I'm going to just throw on some parts right here. So this is just a DXF file I have on my desktop that I use for demos and stuff, but it's a layered DXF file. So I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to throw some random toolpaths on here. So don't mind me. This is going to be kind of quick and dirty here. But so we've got a couple of these. I'm just going to throw an island fill on here. That's fine because I was kind of messing around with this earlier. These I'm going to do an engrave. Route back. This will throw an island fill on here. Again, I'm kind of doing this fairly carelessly, but we'll do some, oh, those are not, let's do those at a little different depths. Let's do those at 0.25 instead. And these are our through holes, so we'll do these at 5 millimeters all the way through. Okay, so what it means by layer is that I'm going to turn on my layers. Now I've got all my tool paths here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my layers here, and it's going to go top to bottom. And so what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to move my layers into the correct places. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all the empty layers first. What is in layer 1? Let's take a look at what's in layer 1 real quick. There is nothing, so all right, let's delete it. Not sure why it didn't. Oh, it's because that was the active layer. That's why. Current layer, there we go. You can't remove the active layer. Well, delete. There we go. We'll just get rid of it because we don't need it. There we go. So now we've just got this. So I'm going to take this one here, and I'm probably going to want to do my 5 millimeter holes first. So I'm going to bump those up. And then I believe that the main we want to do next, and then the cut to pass, and then the route back. Let's hit OK. All right, so 5 millimeter through holes. Okay, yep, we wanted the main cut to pass. Okay, so we want route back to be first. So move this up one, and then this will be our final pass. Okay, perfect. So now I'm going to turn on all my layers. And what this is going to do is if I hit output to simulate, I'm going to do layers, update order. And what this is going to do is this will automatically start cutting it in the order of my tools. So it should do it in the order. And it looks a little bit weird, but it's doing the drill holes right now. It's because I have a drill bank set up here. So it's doing all the drill holes first. I think this is doing it in 2 passes. And now it's going to do my engraves. Then these guys, which are all in that because my those slots were second, and then the route back was third. And then finally it's going to do the end. So that's what layers does. So if you order them in the correct order, it will always do by layers. So if you deal with layered DXF files frequently, it will go in this order right here. That's what layers is all about. Good question though. That's a good one. There's all kinds of different ways to order. If you think about it, EnRoute has a lot of different ways of ordering stuff. You can approach the same way or the same file in different ways. So definitely a lot of different ways to order. And I think these 2 new tools gives you guys a couple new options for ordering.
All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today, so we'll go ahead and wrap up. Did want to thank you all again for coming today, and we will be hosting our next EnRoute training webinar in March. Let me see here. It looks like it will be on March 17th. We'll be talking about statistics and reporting with EnRoute. And we'll send you all an email invitation to that one as well. And we will see you next month. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.